I think what Stravinsky was to music and Picasso to painting, Martha Graham was to dance. All three great artists were modernists. In their time, when their works were premiered, they were considered scandalous. Some of you here know that Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, there was a riot. When it first premiered, people rioted in the streets, the police had to be called, the music shut down because the music was so cacophonous that the people could not find it in their nervous system to embrace it. And Martha's work has been called ugly, and only because it is not familiar. We were coming from the lyricism and the romantic era in ballet, fairy tales and princess, and beautiful string music of Tchaikovsky, and Martha sometimes danced in total silence. Martha's greatest influence was actually the West Coast, specifically Asia. She came from a family that descended from Miles Standish on her mother's side. Her father was called a doctor, which in those days they called psychiatrists alienists. And he treated people with psychiatric disorder. And he always said that movement never lies. And Martha always imparted that to us. You can't lie when you're dancing for Martha, she'll catch you. So the family moved to Santa Barbara, and Martha's sister, Georgina Graham, often said that they had a Chinese houseboy. In those days, the early 1900s, it's very common to have Chinese workers who came to build the railroad and then stayed and then work in domestic help. When Martha was 16, she took classes from Dennis Shawn Company. Ruth St. Dennis and Ted Shawn were another couple of early pioneers that broke the tradition of ballet, and they had their own company. In 1925, the Dennis Shawn Company went on an extended year-long tour, first to Japan, then to China, and then to India. After we see this, A Dancer's World, I'll show you a clip of what the Dennis Shawn took of their encounter with Chinese dance. So Martha in India was greatly influenced by yoga. If you look at her technique, a lot of the floor exercises actually came from yoga. The asanas, the different poses, came from yoga. And it was also in India that she saw how the floor is another dimension to explore. Instead of just space, the floor became the fourth dimension. Those of you who have seen Martha, you know that her technique, the so-called Martha Graham technique, became the new language of movement for her choreography. In a nutshell, she based her whole exploration of movement vocabulary on a simple law of physics: contraction and release. Or the heart contracts and it releases. We breathe in, we breathe out. And out of this basic exchange of energy, she formed an entire language of expression. The other thing that is a first for Martha Graham is her relationship to music. Prior to this break in the early 20th century, choreographers used existing music. Some symphony, especially Tchaikovsky's work or Beethoven's work. But for Martha, the movement came first. And then the composers would write for the movement. For example, the ballet club showed Appalachian Spring, and yes, it was based on a Shaker's hymn, but she choreographed the dance first, and then Aaron Copland wrote the music for her, which is very unusual and is a major breakthrough. And at the time, her music director was Louis Horst, and Louis would scout really innovative young composers to work with her, like Villalobos, Alan Hovhannes, Norman de Arroyo. And at the same time, Martha also commissioned sets from sculptors like Isamu Noguchi, who designed the set for Frontier. And if you see this film, A Dancer's World, this is Martha's studio. And clinging around the side of the wall are very low sculptural seats. They were all designed and made by Isamu Noguchi. This was filmed in 1957. Martha was born in 1894. So she lived to be 97, and it is halfway mark for her. She herself did not dance in this piece, but she did comment on it, and she was in the dressing room getting ready to perform one of the greatest pieces she choreographed, Night Journey, which is the story of Oedipus. I like to leave you with two quotes from her. The dance is an animate composition in space. Dancing is movement made significant, technique used to express spiritual content in intelligible form. What is form? Form is the memory of spiritual content. When do form and content meet? Form and content meet in action. More than anything else, dance is about action.
Theater dressing room is a very special place. It's where the act of theater begins. And makeup is a magic. It's a ritual. It's the means by which you transform yourself into the character you hope to play. You make up your face as you think she might have looked. You dress your hair as you think she might have dressed hers. I'm wearing my hair tonight as Jocasta, or at least as I hope she wore it. And then there comes a moment when she looks at you in the mirror and you realize that she's looking at you and recognizing you as herself. It is through you, her love, her hope, her fear, her terror is to be expressed. And there's a moment of fear on your own part. Dread, sense of hazard, feeling that perhaps you haven't done quite enough work. Perhaps you should have gone back to the studio and worked again. Because that which you do not want to do is to fail in either clarity or in passion. You give all your life to doing this one thing. It sounds grim, it sounds frightening. It isn't. It has a great gaiety at times and a great wonder. But at the same time, there is that need to go back to the studio. Dance is communication, and the great desire is to speak clearly and beautifully and with inevitability. And this is true of all of us. It's true of me. It's true of every member of my company.